And with that, we're going to get started. Dejalanti, if you want to take it away.
Yes, thank you, Harshita. Welcome all. And yes, we will just begin with counting 12 Naukars for Vishwa Shanti, and after which we shall begin with our Pratna. So please hold your hands for the 12 Naukars. नमो अरिहन्ताणं नमो सिताणं नमो आयर्याणं नमो वज्रायाणं नमो लोये सवसाहुणं येसो पञ्चनमुक्कारो सब्बप्पावप्पणासनो मङ्गलाणं च सवेसिं परमां हवै मङ्गलम् निवाणमक्ये वरजाणकपं पणास्यासे सकुवायदपं मायं जिणाणं शरणं बुहाणं नमामि नित्यं तिजगपहाणं बोधागादं सुपदपदवी निरपुराभिरामं जीवाहिंसा विरललहरी संगमागाह देहं चूलावेलं गुरुगममणि संकुलं दूरपारं सारं वीरागमजलनिधिं सादरं साधु सेवे मङ्गलं भगवान् वीरो मङ्गलं गौतम प्रभो मङ्गलं स्थूलिभद्राद्या जैनधर्मोऽस्तु मङ्गलम्. Pranam everybody. Yes, yesterday we had left off a little bit of yesterday's Vakhyan. We had reached up to the 16th life of Bhagwan Mahavir. We have started with Bhagwan Mahavir's Charitra, wherein in the Bhav of Naisar, he got Samyaktva, and then he went to Devlok and he became Marichi. We saw how he had done an egoistic act when he learned that he's going to be the 24th Tirthankar, and as also he was going to become the first Vasudev. So yes, at that time he kind of became very happy, very proud about his clan and Kul, and because of that he added a lot of life to his sansar. So because of that he kind of had to go from one to the other lives. He lost his samyaktva also because in that same life, because he had one disciple that he had made and he wanted to take diksha with Marichi himself, and Marichi was like, there is dharma there also near Bhagwan, as well as there is dharma here. When he said that, he did Utsutra Prarupna because he had flowed in his Diksha. He had become a Tridandik. He had changed so many things. He started using an umbrella, started using shoes, started wearing orange clothes, and because of that, he had diverted from the right path that Bhagwan, Rishabdev Bhagwan had showed, and because of that, Utsutra Prarupna, and because of that, he also added a lot of life to his sansar. And so yes, from there he went to a lot of six lives of different sadhus. The orange bhagwa color means orange tapas dikshas, and in between each diksha he went to Devlok, and then finally he came to the 16th life, wherein he took birth as Vishwabhuti. Vishwabhuti grew up with his cousin Vishakhanandi. Both of them were brothers and they grew up together. Now, in their house they had or in their palace they had this garden, and in the garden there was this rule that if one of the brother was sitting or enjoying the garden with his wife, the other one had to wait. He couldn't go into the garden at the same time, and he couldn't disturb his brother. So he had to wait. He had to wait for his brother to come out, and only then he could enter the garden and enjoy the garden with his wife, or just generally, or however. So saying that, having said that, once Vishwabhati was in the garden with his wife. He was having a good time there, and Vishakanandi, his cousin, sees this and was a little jealous. He wanted to go to the garden at the same time with his wife. So he kind of tricked his brother. He sent a messenger to telling his brother, or rather he actually rung a bell, and this bell was the sound that their father was calling them. The father was calling them to wage war. It was an emergency. It was a siren that kind of alerted all of them that something is happening and their father needs them instantly. And so he left his wife, told his wife to go back to the palace, and he rushed back to his father. When he reached his father, he asks his father, yes, tell me, what is the emergency? Where do we have to go? Who, somebody attacking us? What is happening? And his father says, calm down, nothing. I didn't even ask for you. So saying, no. And he returns back to the palace. He takes his wife and decided to go back to the garden, thinking, I don't know why, it must be a false alarm or something. But as soon as he reached the garden, he sees that his brother was inside the garden with his wife. This angered him. He realized how he had been tricked, and so he kind of makes a big, huge fist and bangs the tree that he was standing right next to. And all the fruits on the tree fell down. The noise, the thud kind of shocked Vishakanandi, and he looked back, and at that time Vishwabhuti told him that, you know, if I was permitted, I would kill you at the moment for doing this. I would drop your head down just like these fruits. He was so angry. But then after a moment, again, he pacifies himself, he cools down, and he gets vairagya. He thinks this is life. This is how everything is. Nobody is like really pure, really good at heart. Everybody cheats everybody. And this is sansar. And that vairagya takes him to taking diksha. After taking diksha, once when he was going for gochari, as we've already discussed, alms, that is food that Maharaj Sahib's take, is called gochari. So when he was going to take gochari, at that time, in the same town, his cousin brother Vishakanandi had come there because he was getting married to the princess of that town. And on his way to gochari, this Maharaj Sahib was kind of hurt by a cow, and because of that he was weak because he had 30 days ka upvas. So he falls down, and when he falls down, his cousin standing behind kind of starts laughing, and this was like felt like a very big insult to Vishwabhuti. Vishwabhuti feels very insulted that his brother was laughing at him, and his brother was kind of saying, oh, what happened to that strength that you had, that you were going to cut off my throat like you dropped all the fruits from that tree? What happened to that power? Oh, Diksha kind of ruined it all, huh? Is it? And this really felt so insulting to Vishwabhuti that he actually picks up the cow there and holds it with its horns and flings it and throws it to the side and does a niyanu. What is a niyanu? Niyanu means he decides that because of all the tap, he had done a lot of tap after taking Diksha. So he's saying, oh, if I have done the right tap, and for so much of all the tap that I've done in my life after Diksha, let me become a very powerful king. And this is Niyanu, that he traded. He traded all his punya for something so tribal, like becoming a king. And but these niyanus, whenever niyanus are done, they are always fulfilled. You get what you decide and you want in exchange of tap. And this is not permitted in Jainism, because you are trading for things which are very trivial instead of getting something so much more worth it. So, but he had already said that he wanted to become a king, and so he becomes a Vasudev in his next life, or rather from here he goes to Devlok, and after that he becomes a Vasudev. From here he goes to the seventh Devlok, and from there he is going to be born as the Vasudev in his 18th life. Here, in his 18th life, his father, whose name was Prajapati, he had this daughter, and this daughter was very, very beautiful. Now the king, that is her dad, actually fell in love with his own daughter and wanted to marry her. So he kind of calls all his ministers and asks them, what is the right of a king? And everybody says to everything that there is in this in his kingdom, saying, okay, and supposing it is the most precious thing in the kingdom, then so the minister said, of course, but obvious, it is all the king's, it's yours, majesty. And hearing that, he says, okay, so the most beautiful thing that I think today in my kingdom is my own daughter. And so who's should be able to kind of marry her? So everybody kind of unanimously says, of course you, because they had no option. Even though they didn't like it, they just had to go by this. And so King Prajapati marries his own daughter, and they have a son. And this son is born to the mother after seeing 7 dreams. Now, when a Vasudev is born, the mother sees 7 dreams, just like a Chakravarti's mother sees 14 faded dreams, and a Tirthankar's mother sees 14 very, very clear dreams. A Vasudev's mother sees 7 hazy dreams. Okay. Another thing is, a Vasudev is always born because of Niyanu. Because he had done Niyanu, only then he got this position as a Vasudev. And when he is born, he is always born by the depiction of 7 dreams. Always a Vasudev has a brother, a step brother. And here in this story, his step brother's name was Achal, Baldev Achal. Vasudev has an elder brother. The elder brother is always a Baldev, and this time his name was Achal Baldev. There in one Utsarpini or in one Avsarpini, we always have 24 Tirthankars, we have 12 Chakravartis, we have 9 Vasudevs, 9 Prati Vasudevs, and 9 Baldevs. Okay, so this one is Baldev. He is the elder brother to the Vasudev, and he is the soul of Gautam Swami. He is the step brother to to Vasubhuti, Vasudev Radu. And Baldev's mother always sees 4 dreams. Now, time passes, both the kids grow up, and they are both young and handsome. And at that time, there was another king called Ashwagriv. Now, this Ashwagriv was very scared that Prajapati king has 2 very, very powerful sons, and they both are capable of taking away my kingdom. So I must do something such that they both are killed, and only then will I have my kingdom to myself. Else I will definitely going to lose it to them on one day. So because of that, because of this feeling, strong feeling that he's going to lose his kingdom, he kind of sends an order to Prajapati king that there is this lion here who is troubling all the villagers. Now Prajapati king at that time was under Ashwagriv king. So he had to take orders from Ashwagriv. And so he's like, okay, and he's thinking about who to send. And at that moment, both his sons kind of say, we both will go, you don't have to worry about this, we both will handle it. And both of them go into the jungles, into near the village where the lion was always kind of causing trouble. So they go there and they go hunting into the jungles for the lion, and finally they spot the lion. And this Vasudev gets down, Tripushta Vasudev gets down from his chariot. His chariot was driven by Achal Baldev, and he was riding in it. He gets down, quickly approaches the lion very fearlessly. He holds both the jaws of the lion and kind of tears him apart. That was his strength. Tripushta Vasudev was very, very, very strong. And the lion is like a kind of suffering, in pain, and about to die on his last deathbed. So at that time, Achal Baldev gets down and approaches this lion and kind of gives him Naukar mantra. He recites the whole Naukar mantra to this lion and tells him that don't worry, just like you are the king of the jungles, similarly you have been killed by the king of all humans. Soon he is going to be king of all humans, so don't worry, you haven't died by the hands of a mere man, but by a Vasudev. So think yourself lucky and don't get angry, control yourself and calm yourself. After that, time passes, and once this Tripushta Vasudev had a splitting headache and wanted to sleep, wanted to take a nice nap. So he asks the person who is taking care of his bedroom that why don't you ask some people to play some music, some soothing music, such that I fall off to sleep. And mind you, once I fall off to sleep, it is your duty to see that the music is off so that I can keep sleeping and I'm not disturbed by the sound of the music once I'm asleep. So the Shaya Palak, that is the person who was taking care of his bedroom, says, yes, sir, yes, your majesty, as you say. And the music starts. It's so soothing that Tripushta Vasudev soon falls asleep. And then this minister, who was so engrossed in listening to the music, he kind of forgets to ask them to stop. He doesn't realize that the king was already asleep, and the music plays on. In some time, Tripushta Vasudev wakes up and he sees that the music is still on, and so he gets really angry with the Shaya Palak and kind of says, you want to listen to music, you enjoy music, this is what your ears want to keep doing, you don't want to listen to orders, is that what you do? And he orders for molten iron ore, very hot molten iron ore. And he, as you can see in the inset of the picture, he pours it in the ears of this Shaya Palak, which instantly, of course, kills him. And because of this pouring of that hot molten iron into the ears of this Shaya Palak, he, after, when he becomes in his last birth, that is when as Mahavir Swami Bhagwan, he had to suffer when that Goshalo kind of puts thorns, wood sticks into his ears. And this kind of is the worst suffering that Mahavir Swami Bhagwan had to endure. We shall discuss that tomorrow when we go through the austerities that he has to face in his last life. From here, because he was Vasudev, he had to wage wars, he had to kill, and also because of such a very angry and cruel mind that he had, he becomes a lion. And from after becoming a lion, he goes to the seventh hell in his 19th, from there he goes to the 19th, in his 19th life, he goes to the seventh hell. From there, he becomes a lion. And again, he goes to hell in the fourth hell. So that is his 21st life. In his 22nd life, he becomes Prince Vimal. He is loved by his parents and they keep him very happy. Vimal is like a very soft-hearted person. He didn't like hunting, and whenever he went to the jungles and if he saw some net some hunter had placed and saw caught animals in it, he would go up to that net and free them and give the hunter as much money as he would ask for to free off these locked up animals or caught animals. After some years, he takes Diksha. And after Diksha, Sorry, just a moment. Yes, he takes Diksha. And after Diksha, in his 23rd birth, he is now born as a Chakravarti in Mavidek Kshetra. And there, his mother, because he is a Chakravarti, also sees 14 dreams, but this time these dreams are not clear. They are very, very hazy. They are the same 14 dreams and the same order, but a Tirthankar's mother sees them very, very vivid and very, very clear, whereas a Chakravarti's mother doesn't see them so clear. They are very, very hazy. He again takes Diksha. By rule, if a Chakravarti doesn't take Diksha, the Chakravarti goes to Narak. But if a Chakravarti takes Diksha, he will go to Devlok. So from here, Chakravarti Priyamitra takes Diksha and goes to the 7th Devlok in his 24th life. Then, in his 25th life, he becomes Nandan Muni. Again, he is born to a king, and he is like raised in a palace. He loved his lifestyle. He had everything that anybody needed, but still he had that vairagya that was there coming with him since years now, since his past lives. And so that vairagya draws him to taking Diksha. He once again takes Diksha and becomes Nandan Muni. And as Nandan Muni, all the lives that for the entire lifespan that he had in Diksha, he does Maskhaman Naparna Maskhaman. So means 30 Uppas, Parnu one day, and again he picked up 30 Uppas, and then Parnu, and again 30 Uppas. He did that for 11,80,645 times. So he did 11,80,645 Masak Shamans. In this life, this being his third last life, he binds Tirthankar Nam Karma, and he also has this wish that he gets the entire universe to kind of follow Jainism. That is, Savi Jeev Karu Sashan Rasini Bhavna is what is kind of engulfing him, and he does this Visthanak Notap. What is Visthanak Notap? It's a set of 20 days that you're supposed to fast. May not be continuous. You could do one and leave, but this 20 days of fast should be completed in 6 months. So you could do 20 together, 20 alternately, or 20, within 6 months. So you fast, and then there is a set Kriya, there is a set Naukarwali, Khamas, Samanas, and everything. You have to follow that. And to bind a Tirthankar Nam Karma in the third last bhav, every Tirthankar definitely does this Visthanak Tap. You have to do a set of 20 such 20 days. Yes, but for Tirthankar Nam Karma, one can do only one set and still bind this Tirthankar Nam Karma. That person doesn't need to definitely finish all the 20 sets. So yes, he does Visthanak Tap. This is the Visthanaks, the 20 Sthanak, the 20 places in the 20 people that you need to pray to or observe fast for and do Kriya of. So this is Arihant, Siddh, and so on. Yes. So it is something like a Siddha Chakraji. A Siddha Chakraji has 9 places, and we do Ambilni only. Excuse me. But here, this is Visthanak Tap, and in Visthanak there are 20 places, and 20 days need to be devoted per Sthanak. Yes. After that, he does Anshan and goes to the 10th Devlok in his 26th life. When he was in the 10th Devlok, he met the soul of Parshvanath Bhagwan, because Parshvanath Bhagwan was also in the 10th Devlok at the same time. This too we shall see on the 7th day when we do the Charitra of Parshvanath Bhagwan. Both Parshvanath Bhagwan and Mahavir Swami Bhagwan were in the 10th Devlok in their previous life before they became Tirthankar, and so their time span definitely overlapped, because they just had a difference of how many years? 250 years. So yes, their time span in Devlok overlapped, and so they were there together. this is the last bhav now that we're going to start his last, and that is the 27th bhav. In that, we are just going to take a little view about his life that he had. He lived in Sansar for 30 years, that is household life. After that, he takes Diksha, that is his sadhana kal, and that he observed for 12.5 years. In this sadhana kal, generally Bhagwans don't talk, they stay mount because, and they don't preach, because until and unless they get complete knowledge, that is Keval Jnana, they do not start preaching. His mothers, he had two mothers, as we've already seen that he was in the garb, in the womb of Devananda mother for 82 days because he had become proud in the life of Marichi. So, and his father then was Rishabdas. They both passed away at 105 and 110 years respectively. And his second mother was Trishla Mata and Siddhartha Raja, who passed away at 84 years and 87 years. His birthplace was Kshatriya Kund. His lanchan. Now, what is a lanchan? Every Bhagwan is born with a tattoo, and this tattoo is on his right leg, on his right thigh. So there is this small little shape, a tattoo, and Mahavir Swami Bhagwan had the tattoo in the shape of a lion. So that becomes his symbol. Whenever we make a murti and place it pratishtha kariye in a temple, the small space down after his feet, there's a small space down wherein there we have a small square, just a square in that pedestal, and in that square we have an engraved emblem, and this emblem tells you which Bhagwan he is. So when you see a lion, then you're sure that it is Mahavir Swami Bhagwan. Mahavir Swami Bhagwan had a color, the color of his skin was golden. So it isn't, his height was 7 hath. We've done this. 1 hath is from the elbow to the fingertip. So Sat Hathani Kaya, so 7 such hands is how tall Mahavir Swami Bhagwan was. His age, his lifespan was 72.5 years. And his Nirvan Bhumi was Pava Puri. Now, we had started with these 27 lives of Bhagwan with Shakrendra doing Chaitya Vandan. He was saying Namuttanam in praise of Bhagwan, and in that he had called for Hiranyagamishi Dev. This Dev, can you see this Dev? With the head of a deer. He had called for him and he had said, okay, why don't you do one thing? Go down. He told him all the 10 acheras, the 10 things that happen once in infinite time. So those kind of things he told him, said these are the 10 things that have happened, and right now there's one more happening down. Why don't you go and do transplant? Why don't you take Devananda's womb and put it into Trishla Mata's womb? And at that same time, Trishla Mata also had a baby in her stomach, and she was a girl. So she was supposed to be transplanted to Devananda mother's womb, and Devananda mother's womb was supposed to be, baby was supposed to be transplanted into Trishla Mata's womb. Listening to this, Hiranyagamishi Dev goes down to the earth and makes Devananda Mata go to sleep, gives her Avaswapini Nidra and puts her off to sleep. And in her slumber, she doesn't realize when the baby was removed and taken. And similarly, when he reaches the palace of Trishla Mata, he puts Trishla Mata as well as the entire palace to sleep, transplants the baby Bhagwan into Trishla Mata's stomach and takes the little girl and puts her in Devananda Mata's womb. As soon as Bhagwan comes into Trishla Mata's womb, you can see he is transferring the garb, the baby Bhagwan. And at that time, as soon as this is done, Devananda Mata wakes up and she starts crying. She starts feeling very, very low and very, very depressed because she could sense it, that something wrong had happened to her, because she saw those same dreams that had entered her mouth, the same 14 dreams that had entered her mouth. This time they were all coming out. First time when the garb came inside, when the soul of Mahavir Swami Bhagwan came into her womb, she saw the 14 dreams entering her mouth. And now when the soul of Mahavir Swami Bhagwan was removed, she saw the 14 dreams coming out. And on this side, Trishla Mata sees all the 14 dreams coming into her mouth. Now, when Rishabdev Bhagwan's mother saw these 14 dreams, she saw the bull first. When Mahavir Swami Bhagwan's mother saw these 14 dreams, she sees a lion first. And the rest of the 22 Tirthankar see an elephant first. Here we shall start talking about the lion first, because we are talking about the birth of Vardhaman Swami or Mahavir Swami. And so we shall begin the way the Supans were, Sapnas were seen by Trishla Mata. Yes. Devananda Mata as well as Trishla Mata, both of them saw these dreams in the same order, because they were both looking at the dreams for Mahavir Swami Bhagwan. Just a moment, Harshita, have we? Yes.
Yes, I was just about to say. So at this point, we're going to go into the 14 dreams that both Devananda and Trishla Mata saw before they, or during when Mahavir Swami was in their wombs. So at this point, we also want to give you all an organizer to help put this information down on paper and help you better understand and remember each of the 14 dreams and what they stand for, what they represented. I'm going to quickly share my screen as well as put the link in the chat, but this is going to be to a doc that you can fill out on your own. It's not editable, so you're going to have to do this on paper or print it out and fill it out then, but it'll really help, again, in organizing your thoughts as we go forward with this lecture. So let's take 1 minute so people can get this link down, and then we will resume the lecture. Again, for anyone who missed it, we are going to be filling out the 14 Dreams Organizer side by side for this portion of the lecture. It's just going to help you remember what Dejalanti does speak about, as well as for yourself, help solidify why each dream happens and what it means for the Tirthankar that is to be born. So I've sent the link to the dreams in the chat, and it's also present on the screen. It's not editable, so you're going to have to either write it down on a piece of paper or print it out and then write on top of that. Perfect. I think that's fine. I'll once again send the link to the chat one more time, but Dejalanti, if you want to carry on.
Okay, thank you. Yes. So let's begin to see the dreams that Trishla Mata saw. In her first dream, she sees a lion, the magnificent lion, white in color. You can see his tongue is out, it's hanging out with lust. His tail was raised high as if ready to strike. His eyes were glowing and had a gentle look. This dream indicated that the child who was going to be born to Queen Trishla was going to be fearless, and he would take Diksha like a lion, and he would also have fearless followers who will follow this religion. This religion is very, very strict, and because of that we need people who can follow this religion, but those people have to be very, very fearless, otherwise it is not in the capacity of normal and anybody to follow this religion to its complete height. So if you want to go and catch those heights, then you have to be fearless, you have to be very strong-minded, and only then can you get there. So yes, this lion is depicting that he is going to be fearless, and he is going to also have followers who will have to be fearless if they need to progress ahead. So that was the first dream. The second dream is also white in color. It is the elephant, and this elephant is also white. The reason that all the dreams are generally white is because white things are supposed to be pure. It kind of denotes, the color denotes purity and chastity, and so most of these dreams are white. And even if we see anything, say a white snake or a white bull or something like that, very very white, even here when you have a white pigeon, we say it shows peace, like so it resembles peace. So same way, white being the color of purity and serenity, of something nice and pure. So that's why all these animals were white in color. The white elephant with 4 tusks, if you will notice in the picture, it has 4 tusks. It was endowed with the desirable marks of excellence. This dream indicated that Queen Trishla's son would be strong and intelligent like the elephant. The 4 tusks signified that he would pierce and uproot the 4 passions, namely anger, ego, deceit, and greed. So here he is going to be so strong as to remove his own anger, his own ego, deceit, greed, everything, all his passions. He is going to be able to remove them this life. After that, the third dream, again it's a white bull. Now this white bull had a very majestic hump. Can you see his hump here? It was huge, and it was very significant and very huge. It was grand and bright and had a majestic hump, this bull. This indicated that Queen Trishla's son would be hardworking, just like the bull is hardworking. He is going to be hardworking and will sow the seeds of religion. And this kind of is a significance that laziness will be shed off. So he will be able to toil to cultivate religion. That is the third dream. Then comes the next, the fourth dream, the Shri Devi. This is the goddess of wealth. Yes. Now she was seated on a lotus, as you can see in the middle, and she had 2 lotuses in her hands, 1 in each. And also there were 2 elephants on the sides who were kind of showering her with scented water. And this Lakshmi Devi had radiant beauty. She was dazzling, sitting on her lotus. And this denoted that her son, Trishla Mata's son, would enjoy great glory and splendor, both inner as well as outer. And this shows this kind of is a significance of generosity, that he would have this glory and he would kind of spread it to the others who are his disciples or who are his followers. This is the end of the second Vakhyan, that is from yesterday. So now we shall start with today's Vakhyan. And just a minute. Yes, so this is the Vakhyan for today, morning Vakhyan 3, the 14 dreams continued. Yes. The 5th dream is Fulni Mala, right? A garland of flowers. This garland mainly had white flowers in color with mixed colored flowers in between. So most of the flowers were white in color, but with little colors of colored flowers in between. Its flowers were the blossoms of all the seasons. That is, all the six season flowers were kind of incorporated in this flower garland. Their fragrance attracted many bees, as you see in the picture. So many bees came around because of the fragrance of the flowers. This is the significance of this dream, is that he will be victorious, and victorious people kind of wear a garland, so he will be victorious. He will be surrounded by devotees, just like this garland was surrounded by buzzing bees. And it kind of shows us or tells us that to overcome pleasures of our senses. This is the fifth dream. We move on to the sixth dream. In the sixth dream, yes, there is a deer in the middle, but Bhagwan's mother, she sees a very clean white as you can think of, a moon as white as you can think of. You know, there's no spot, no black mark, nothing on it, just plain white moon. Yes, it was a scarlet full moon inspiring lilies to bloom. It denoted that he will be calm and inspire spiritual progress. He himself will progress, and seeing him, many people would like to follow him. You know, there are some people in the world, people just generally want to follow him. He is walking like this, let me do it like that. He is doing that, let me do this. So yes, he is going to inspire people to follow him, not in sansar, but on his spiritual path. And that one can do only with a very cool temperament. So this is going to have that significance. This dream is going to signify that he is going to bring about the lesson of peace and end sufferings in the world. Then comes the bright sun. The next dream, the seventh dream, is the sun, and this sun was red in color. Okay, it wasn't the orange or the yellow sun that we see, but the sun that the mother saw was a very bright red sun. A sun's rays, right? It has these rays. So this sun had 1,000 rays, kind of destroying the darkness that was created around in the atmosphere. It kind of denoted that Bhagwan himself will have supreme knowledge and will remove ignorance from all the minds of everybody in the world. And that will benefit everybody to get the right faith and the right knowledge. It will also bring him right faith and right knowledge, and he would help and assist others to bring right faith and right knowledge in themselves. It puts an end to all the evil elements which thrive at night. This dream also kind of told us that Bhagwan will remove all the illusions from the masses at large. Then comes the eighth dream. It is the flag. The flag is like fluttering, it is moving, it is swaying with the wind. That kind of a flag is what Trishla Mata sees. The flag will have the emblem, and it will be on a golden pole. It would also have jingles and peacock feathers at the end. Can you see these peacock feathers? Yes, so it would have peacock feathers and jingles at the end of the flag. The flag was studded with 5 colored gems. Yes, and this denotes that this child would carry the banner of religion and would reinstate it. This kind of shows his leadership, his fearless followers again. Like we had the fearless followers in the first dream, here too he's going to be having fearless followers who will carry his banner ahead. Then comes the Puran Kalash. Purna Kalash means the whole kalash is kind of filled with water to the brim. Yes, this denotes, or rather, sorry, before that, the kalash also has a garland around the neck of the kalash, and it is filled to the brim with water. This kind of shows that he is going to be bathed when he is born. He is taken to Meru Parvat, and that is where he is bathed with so many kalashes filled with water. So this denotes that he is going to be bathed with many such pots on Meru Parvat. Also, a kumbh is a sign of purity. So he is going to have or be pure at speech, body, and mind. Everything about him is going to be very, very pure. Its mouth was covered by lotus flower, the base was covered by a lotus flower, and it was decorated by a garland around its neck. This implied that the Queen Trishla's child would be bathed by many such pots, which will have water of lotus lake, Pundrik Draha. From there, the water will come, and that water will be filled in this lake, and it will be carried by divine deities. Just like this pot is filled with water, he himself will be filled with passions and compassion. So not passion, compassion, Michhami Dukram. Then comes the lotus lake. That is the 10th dream. This lake was huge. Wherever you saw only water and lotuses. This lake had a lot of yellow pollen on it, because on the shore near the lake there were lots and lots of flowers, and there were lots of these flamingos there. So these flamingos would sit on these lotus on the shore, and their wings would kind of carry all the pollen, and when they would go into the waters, that time they would drop all the pollen on the water, making the whole lake look yellow or golden in color. This lake had lot of lotuses, and these lotuses had 1,000 petals each. This denotes that Bhagwan will remain detached from the sansar and from anybody, from all his relatives and everybody, just like a lotus is detached from the water. The lotus kind of grows inside the water, but then it kind of comes above, up, and doesn't even touch the bed of the water. It is above. So he will be detached from all worldly attachments from the beginning. Then comes the 11th dream, that is the Kheer Samudra. Now, Kheer Samudra is one of the oceans. Remember, we were talking about those land, water. So Kheer Samudra is one of the oceans that come in that land, water order. And this Kheer Samudra is white in color, and its waves are kind of splashing high up, and the waves are even whiter than milk. Yes, so again white in color. So most of our dreams, except the sun, everything was white in color. This kind of looks like milk. It's like a milky ocean, Kheer Samudra. And also, let me mention here that the taste of this water is like milk, or rather kheer. That's why kheer, rice and milk mixed together with lots of sugar. So yes, this water tastes like milk, and sugared milk, rather kheer. But if you eat it, it kind of doesn't make you put on, because it just has the taste. Just like we have salty water here, we have fresh water, and we have, if you taste Ahmedabad pani, it's different. If you taste the water in Mumbai, it is different, right? So similarly, this Kheer Samudra water tastes different from normal water, and this water tastes like milk. It kind of had lots of crocodiles and other fishes and everything jumping and making merry. This Kheer Samudra denotes that he will renounce the world and dive into the ocean to the bed. Just like an ocean has lots of jewels at the bed, same way he will dive into his soul and bring out the jewels of Ratnatraya, that is Samyak Darshan, Gnan and Charitra. And so he will kind of finally get so much knowledge which he will be able to digest. He will not be immature, not be આપણે કહીએ ને કે he will be very gambhir, that is he will be able to digest the knowledge that he kind of accepts and takes in during his life. After that, we go on to the 12th dream, and the 12th dream is the celestial plane. Here, let me tell you, if the mother sees this celestial plane, then it means that is a Dev Viman. If she sees a Dev Viman, then her son will come from Devlok. But if she sees a Bhuvan, Bhuvan is a house, it's like a room, a house, a palace, a castle kind. Huge Bhuvan is a huge place and it is a house. Okay, so if she sees a Bhuvan in this 12th dream, then her son would come from Narak. Luckily for us, or rather coincidentally for us, all the 24 Bhagwans of this Chauvisi came from Devlok, and that's why all of them others saw this celestial plane in their dream. And in the next Chauvisi, as we already know, Ravan, Krishna Maharaja, Shrenik Maharaja, these are all going to come from Narak, and so their mothers will automatically see the Bhuvan in their dream. Now here we are going to describe on the Dev Viman, and it has 1,000 pillars. It is studded with gems, and it is very radiant. All the gems are kind of sparkling and shining, and there are lots of huge paintings on the wall, and it is so radiant that it kind of makes the whole atmosphere very bright and very shiny and intoxicating due to combination of celestial music and aroma of incense. So all this kind of brings about a beautiful atmosphere. This kind of denotes that this is the last death, whether it is in Devlok or whether it is in Narak, of Bhagwan. And it kind of shows us, signifies that this is going to be Bhagwan's last birth. And in that birth, he will be respected by all in all the three loks, whether it is, as I told you before too, Uparno lok, that is the Urdhva lok, or the medium, the Vacheno lok, that is the Madhya lok, or the lower lok, that is the Adho lok. So he will be praised and respected by everybody in every lok. The Ratna Ganji, gems as high as a mountain, Mount Meru. These gems are throwing out radiant light. It is so radiant, kind of it blinds the eye, and these lights kind of denote and depict that Bhagwan will get Keval Jnana in this life, and he will be very virtuous and very, very wise. So this dream denotes his ultimate goal, his ultimate need in life, the reason why he is going to be born, that is Keval Jnana. And finally, that what he is going to attain in this life is what is depicted by this Ratna Ganji. Ratna Ganji means heap of jewels. After that, we come up to the last dream. The last dream is Nirdhum Agni. This is Nirdhum, means Nir means no, Dhum means Dhumado, means smoke. Agni means fire. It means that there is going to be a fire, but this fire is going to be smokeless, and it's going to have high flames going right up to the sky, into the sky, and huge high flames is what the mother sees. And this dream kind of shows that all the karma of Bhagwan will kind of burn away. They will all get exhausted, will all be burnt by this fire, and he will get nirvan, and go to moksha. That is the significance, that he is going to go to moksha. It denotes that he will burn his karma and get nirvan. And the description is that it is all smokeless fire. Trishla Mata sees 14 of these dreams, and she wakes up ekdam suddenly. She's very happy because internally she definitely knew that something good was going to come out of these dreams. She knew that something was good, but still she wanted to listen to it and share her happiness with her husband. So she walks to the husband's room. They were sleeping in separate rooms. So yes, she walks up to the king Siddharth's room and wakes him up very softly and nicely, and tells him her 14 dreams. She describes each dream, and as she describes each dream, King Siddharth, being intellectual, knowing a little bit of these shastras of dreams, he kind of interprets them for her slowly, and just very, very vaguely. This also excites Siddhartha Raja, that he is going to have a son who is going to be a great child, who is going to reach such heights and get Keval Jnana. But they wanted to make sure that what both of them had thought was correct. So they wanted to call these astrologers in the morning. So Siddhartha Raja, tells his wife that don't worry, take care of this child. You are going to be a mother, and a mother to a very good looking son who is going to be obliging the entire world by spreading his knowledge and making everybody understand dharma. So we are going to be blessed, and please take care of this child very nicely and slowly, and give him the sanskars that you can by your good thoughts, your good feelings. And so, listening to this, she says yes to King Siddharth and walks back to her room, and is generally, if you see a good dream, you do not go off to sleep. You sit up, you count Navkar mantra. But if you see a bad dream, then you just don't tell anybody and you go off to sleep and you forget that you even had a dream. But if you have a good dream, just like Trishla Mata, you walk up to your husband or your guru or Bhagwan, or you finally, if you don't want to tell anybody, then you go and approach a cow and tell the cow in the ear a good dream. But if you don't tell anybody the good dream, it doesn't give you the phal, it doesn't give you the fruits. So you must tell the dream to somebody, anybody who is respectable and can understand and keep the dream to themselves. And after seeing the dream, you must always count Navkar mantra and not go off to sleep. So in the morning, King Siddharth orders for a lot of astrologers to come to his palace, to his courtroom. Next morning, Siddharth Raja gets up, and like usual, he does his malish. That's his massage. He has a lovely bath. He wears all his ornaments, and he walks into the courtroom. And in that courtroom, he had invited these astrologers. Before the king came in, all these astrologers kind of talk and discuss between themselves. Okay, it's not one of us who has been called. All of us, all the astrologers in town have been called today by king. So there has to be something very, very important that needs to be discussed. So let us not do like, and a story is narrated by one of them. The story goes like this, that there was one kingdom in which there was a king, and who had called astrologers and had given them just one bed in one room and locked them all up. Okay, all of you are supposed to be staying locked up in this room with just one bed, and there were how many, 500 of them. So 500 astrologers all locked up in one room with one bed, and nightfall. So they were all like, who is going to sleep on the bed? So each one is like, I am going to sleep on the bed because I know this. Somebody says, no, I am older, so I will sleep. Somebody says, no, I have read so many more fortunes than you have. I've read so many more books than you have. And so they were all, arguing with each other, and nobody could decide who was going to sleep on the bed. So finally, they all say, okay, since we can't decide who will sleep on the bed, and since everybody feels they are the best, let's do one thing. We will all put our legs towards the bed and put the bed in the center, make a flower around the bed and sleep like that. So all these people here who had gathered kind of say, yes, we don't want to be like those people who were so foolish and none of them slept on the bed. And in the morning, when the king opened the doors to that room and saw that nobody had slept on the bed, said, I don't want any of you, because if I am in trouble, you guys are only going to fight between yourselves and nobody's going to come up with some answer, some discussion, some solution to my problem. So I don't want anybody as my court astrologer. And that king kind of lets everybody go back home. So these astrologers here, this person, this wise person who said this story, tells everybody that let's not behave like those people. Let's be unanimous. Let's answer and listen to him and select a leader who will do the talking on our behalf with the king. So these people wisely, when the king comes in, do sing praise. One of them gets up and sings praise for Bhagwan. And in the praise, he sings lots of bhakti songs for him, talks about his greatness, talks about his virtues, talks about his fearlessness, his power, and many things. And lastly, they give him blessings. And what blessings they give him? The best blessing in the blessings that they give him was कि भगवान तमने Raja, king, you should be blessed with the bhakti of Bhagwan. Okay, may you be blessed. You always do the bhakti of Bhagwan. And this is the most best blessing that is considered among the blessings that the astrologers gave the king. Why is bhakti supposed to be such a big thing, or is the best blessing, is also depicted by another story in the Kalpasutra. And here the story runs like this, that Pethad Mantri, he was the mantri, mantri means minister. He was the mantri of Mandavgad. Okay. And he could never be disturbed during puja. Whenever he did puja, he sat there for 1 or 2 hours and he had one help. This help would sit behind him with a huge plate of flowers, different colored, different seasoned flowers and beautifully bloomed flowers. And when Pethad Mantri is doing puja, finally he comes to the Angi bit. Angi means decoration on the Bhagwan. So when he comes to the Angi bit and he's trying to put and place flowers, the help behind knew exactly which flower to hand him and would always hand him the right and correct flower. And Pethad Mantri would not even have to turn behind and not get disturbed even for a moment. He just looked at Bhagwan in awe and that's it. That is all what he did and his puja. His wife had strict instructions. No matter what happens, when I am in the temple, I am not to be disturbed. So now, one day, the king had an important issue in the court. And so he sends for Pethad Mantri, the charioteer who comes here with the messenger who comes here approaches Pethad Mantri's wife and says, you know, the king is really very anxious, very hyper, and really needs to meet Pethad Mantri. There is something very urgent that has come up. So please inform him. I'm waiting for him in my chariot and ask him to come along with me. The king is asking for him. So the wife says, sorry, please tell the king he cannot be disturbed. So this messenger goes back. After half an hour, again the messenger returns, he is needed urgently in court. Again the wife says, sorry, he cannot be disturbed. This happens quite a couple of times. And then finally the king is like, okay, now let me see who is more important than I am. What is he doing? Why can't he come here? It's so important. I need him right now. And so he himself sits in the chariot and goes to Pethad Mantri's house. Seeing the king, the queen lets him enter the temple. The king, the king doesn't disturb Pethar Mantri, watches him from outside. You can see the king, he is the king. He kind of watches him from outside and sees that, okay, he has some help who's giving the flowers. So he tells the head help, please come behind. I am going to give the flowers. And he then slowly picks up one flower and hands it to Pethad Mantri. But still Pethad Mantri doesn't know that the king himself had come inside the temple. He is so engrossed in only doing his puja and taking the flowers. Of course, the king didn't know the order of the flowers, and so he missed one or two colors. And that is when Pethar Mantri felt that something was odd, something was different, something was wrong. And so he looks behind and sees, oh my God, the king is here. And that is when, looking at this bhakti, the king tells Pethad Mantri, going forward, you need not come to my court no matter what is happening in my court for those 2 hours that you are in your temple. So this is kind of the bhakti that the astrologers blessed the king with, Siddharth king with. And then they told King Siddharth that yes, what you have decided or deciphered is correct. You will get a son, and this son is going to be the 24th Tirthankar, as the books of astrology is saying, because he could have been a Chakravarti or a Tirthankar, because they both have similar dreams and similar auspicious marks on their hands and legs. But we in our scriptures understand that all the 12 Tirthankars, 12 Chakravartis have passed. So there are no more Chakravartis left. So this is definitely a Tirthankar. The 24th Tirthankar is still left, and he is the 24th Tirthankar. This ends the third Vakhyan. We can take a break here. Harshita?
Yes, so at this point, we're going to take a break. Again, remember, this is not the end of the lecture. We're simply taking a break, and then we will resume the lecture post-break. I'm quickly going to share my screen as well as share the link to the Niyams handout in the chat. Most of you know the drill. If you're new, you're going to go ahead and look at the Niyams organizer. Based on the Niyams organizer, you're going to choose which Niyams you want to take today. Then drop 1 or 2 of those in the chat. We'll read some of them out loud, and then we'll get back to the lecture. Without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and drop the link into the chat. Let me know if you have any questions, and otherwise we'll see you in about 3 to 4 minutes. All right, I see a whole bunch of names in the chat, so I'm going to go ahead and get started reading some of them. Again, it's not too late. If you're still working on them, quickly take a scan through the handout and drop your names in the chat as well. We have Naisha, who's going to be doing all of them. We have Anisha, and she's only going to be drinking boiled water, and she won't step on grass today. Jasmine and Ricken are doing all of them today. Shub is going to limit his video game time further. Ruthvi is doing everything except for 11 and 5. Mehika will not be angry during the entire operation. Really great job. Ruthvi is also doing Biashna. Jasmine and Ricken are both doing all of them, as we said prior. Mehika is going to try to do Attam. Meha and Sanya are doing Ekashna. Ronav, Anisha will only drink boiled water. Shlok is on his 5th Ekashnu. Meha and Sanya are doing Ekashnu. Princey and Pearl will be doing Ekashnu. Rishika will do the limited consumption of snacks and the limited consumption of perfume. Perfect. Sanaya is going to be doing, Sanaya is going to be doing vows 1, 4, 5, 7, and 13. It's someone's second upas, and they're going to try to do an attam. Amiya is doing Ekashna. Sanaya is on her 5th Ekashnu. Rona won't step on grass. And that seems to be about it. So again, as always, it's really amazing to see all of you taking these vows and doing these steps. Kuku Vanamana to all of you, and Shatai to anyone who is fasting. But with that, Dejanti, I think you can take it.
Yes, thank you, Harshita. Yes, this was another day, another attempt to reach to the 5th step. Remember the 14 steps to moksha, and this is reaching the 5th step. That is awesome. I would like to congratulate all of you, as well as ask for your shata to Shashan Devi, that it gives you so much shata that you want to keep doing more and more tap rather than parnas. So yes, please remain in shata, and also that you should try and take at least a small niyam, a small pachkan, whether whatever, even it be like, I will see TV for just 1 hour or 2 hours or something, like any kind of a niyam. It is kind of dravyati taking us a step up, and that is all what we want to try and achieve, that we stay and remain on the 5th step. Yes, so let's proceed with our afternoon Vakhyan, that is Vakhyan 4. Bhagwan has already taken this birth in Trishla Mata's womb. Yes? Okay. So, now, as soon as Bhagwan came into Trishla Mata's womb, and he is noted by everybody, yes, there is going to be a 24th Tirthankar who is going to come to this world in just about some time, say around 9 months. And in that time, all the treasury started filling up, all the godowns with food, and everything was kind of flourishing. Everybody was happy, thoughts were improving, and you could see joy and happiness and laughter, everything all around. And so the parents, that is Trishla Mata and Siddhartha Raja, they both thought, it seems like everything is increasing, just increasing. The wealth is increasing, happiness is increasing, money is increasing, also the food, the greenery, and the people, the glory of the kingdom, the name, everything is increasing. So why not, when this child is born, we name him Vardhaman. Vardhaman's with Vadvu means Vadvu. Vadvu means to increase. So they decided, why not name him Vardhaman? And so yes, this was a name given to Bhagwan by his parents. One more thing, all the 24 Tirthankars, they are not named just generally because I like this name, I'm going to name my son this. No. All the 24 Tirthankars get their name because of the qualities that they have. The qualities bring about the decision of the name that they're going to have. So Vardhaman, the quality that he brought, the soul brought with him when he came to the mother's womb, was that everything was going to increase. All the good things was going to increase, and so the name Vardhaman. After that, first, when baby Bhagwan comes into the womb of his mother, the mother's stomach doesn't show. It doesn't become big. It stays flat, even though there is baby Bhagwan inside. Okay. Another thing, the mother doesn't feel any pain. She can do things just normally, but even then, the mother starts walking slowly, takes care of the child, eats the proper food, doesn't have too cold things, doesn't eat too hot things or too cold things, doesn't have any unhealthy food. She has only the healthy stuff, nothing too sour, nothing too sweet, nothing too bitter, and she kind of really takes care of what she eats, such that the child grows and gets complete and proper nourishment. Now, when a lady is pregnant, she generally gets some wishes. These wishes are kind of a correlation or a connection that she has with her womb. So half the wishes, or rather most of the wishes, are coming because of the soul that is there present inside her stomach. So he transmits his wishes outside through his mother. Sometimes it is, I want to eat this, or I don't want this, I don't like that, those. Or sometimes it is very strange, like Chandra Prabhu, Bhagwan's mother, had, I want to drink the moon. Sometimes it is like Mallinath, Bhagwan's mother, who wanted to sleep on a bed of lotuses. So all the mothers get different kind of wishes and thoughts. Yes. So here, Trishla Mata wanted that the whole town practices ahimsa. Nobody is hurting anybody. And King Siddharth strictly kind of warns everybody in his kingdom that nobody is to hurt even the smallest microorganism. While in the womb, after 6.5 months, Bhagwan just suddenly thinks for his mother. Just imagine, he's not come to life, he's not born as yet, and still he is worried about his mother. He felt that just because I'm moving in her stomach, this must be causing her pain. And so I must not move. Let me become still, and let me kind of, cuddle up so much that I don't occupy too much of her stomach space, and I become still. This he thought for the benefit of his mother, that if I am still, I will not hurt my mother. But because he was still, and suddenly all the movement inside her stomach, inside her womb stopped, Trishla Mata is very scared. She feels she dropped the baby. She didn't have the baby anymore inside the stomach. She starts crying. She starts cursing herself. What did I do wrong? Did I eat something wrong? Did I do something wrong? Did I run? What exactly did I do wrong? Did I not have the karma enough, good karma enough to have this baby, such a wonderful baby? I must have flawed somewhere. I must have done something. She is really, really very, very upset, very depressed, and is kind of cursing herself for what had happened. Now, Bhagwan. When Bhagwan comes to the mother's womb, he has three jnans. First, Shrutignan, Matignan, Shrutignan, and Avdignan. So he has three gnans. Again, Bhagwan with his Avdignan sees what his mother is doing and realizes that, oh my God, she thinks I'm no more. And instead of me causing her happiness by not moving, not reducing her pain, she is kind of feeling sad. She is thinking that I am no more there. And so he slowly moves a little finger, and when he moves that, the mother is happy again, and she calls all the bridesmaids and all the people, all the help that she had, all her friends, and tells them, no, I was wrong. I was so wrong. My baby is alive, is happy, is still there. I haven't done anything wrong. I must have done so much punya. Thank God. Thank my guru. Thank my Dev. Now, just look at her thought process. When she realized the baby was no more, she was cursing herself. And now, as soon as she realized the baby was moving, she thanks Bhagwan. So she thanks Dev, Guru, and Dharma. That because of that, this baby is still there with me. And Bhagwan inside the mother's womb kind of sees and thinks that my mom loves me so much already, even though she's not seen my face. Just imagine how much she will love me if I stay with her, if I am with her. And if she falls so much in love with me, what will she do if I take Diksha? So he decides that I will not take Diksha until and unless both my parents pass out. Now, there were 2-3 things here. One thing that was prophesied from this was that in Mahavir Swami Bhagwan's Shashan, all the people, they will kind of, even if they do for the good of others, whatever they do, that will be considered wrong. They will kind of be taken very differently from what they are trying to do. Because Bhagwan was trying to do good for his mother, but his mother understood it to be wrong. So same way, when anybody is going to do good, it will be misunderstood and considered as not a good thing done for them. So the people will not be that appreciative of the good done by the others. The second thing was that Bhagwan loved his parents, and so he did this, knowing that his parents would die out of shock, would go into Artha Dhyan and Raudra Dhyan. Now, what is Artha Dhyan and Raudra Dhyan? This means they will kind of lament so much, they will curse their karmas, they will curse the atmosphere, they will curse themselves to that extent that they will bind so much karma that they will go to Narak. And that is why he moved and he decided that he will not take Diksha. He moved to save his mother from binding bad karma through Artha and Raudra Dhyan. And for the same reason, he took the Abhigra that I will not take Diksha till my parents are alive. The other 23 Bhagwans also loved their parents, but they didn't do this because their parents, when they took Diksha, say like Rishabdev Bhagwan, we are going to see his Charitra on the 7th day. So Rishabdev Bhagwan's mother cries for him for 1,000 years and she goes blind. But even after that, Rishabdev Bhagwan knew that my mother is not going to go to Durgati. She is not going to go to Narak. My mother, even though she cries, it's not going to take her into Raudra Dhyan. It might be a little Artha Dhyan, but not Raudra Dhyan. And she will be able to survive back. She will fall back in line when she hears about and she sees my grandeur. She will come back and she will be going to moksha. So the other 20 Tirthankars do not do this. They do not take an Abhigra that I will not take Diksha. Because taking Diksha is a good thing. But Bhagwan did that only because he didn't want his parents to go to Durgati. So Bhagwan is born after the completion of let's see how many months and days and what was the atmosphere at that time, what takes place, when can Bhagwan be born. So let us go into a little detail about that. So at that time, all the planets were at its peak. All of them were at its highest position. There are 7 planets and all of them were at its highest position. At birth, if only one planet is at its highest position, then the child that is going to be born is going to be happy. If there are 2 planets at the highest position, the child will be fun loving. If there are 3 planets at the highest position, then the child which is going to be born will be rich. If there are 4 planets, then the child will be a leader. If there are 5 planets at the highest position, he will become a mandalik king. Means a small group of villages, mukhiya kind of thing, mandalik. If 6 planets are at its highest position, then he will be a king. And if all the 7 are at its highest position, then he will become a Chakravarti. Yes, or rather a Tirthankar. So at this time, when Bhagwan was about to be born, all the planets were in their highest position. At that time, the atmosphere was serene and a wave of happiness engulfed the universe. All the 3 loks, the Urdhva, the Madhya, and the Adholok, were infused with light momentarily. It was very bright and shining outside, just momentarily. Birds were chirping happily. Favorable winds were blowing, making the atmosphere very, very fragranceful. All the people too were happy and enjoying the spring when we are just about to hear when Bhagwan was born. When on the 13th day of the bright half of the month of Chaitra, at the stroke of midnight, in Uttara Falguni Nakshatra, Trishla Mata, after 9 months and 7.5 days, gave birth to a healthy prince. Bolo bolo Shri Mahavir Swami Bhagavan ki jai. With this, we complete today's 4th Vakhyan.
At this point, we're going to play a popular stavan that's often played when we talk about Mahavir Swami or when we do his Chaityavandan. It's called Hallelu. You might have probably heard it when doing Pratikaman or at the Mandir during Mahavir Janmakalayanak, or of course during Paryushan when we celebrate Mahavir Janmavanchan. So just sit tight. I'm going to play it for maybe a minute just so everyone really understands like what this means, right? It's a very momentous occasion. And for us to remember that Mahavir Swami was born, the person whose teachings we still follow today, that is very, very significant. So I'm going to go ahead and play it for about a minute, and then we're going to switch over to something else. that's all I'm going to play for now, but I hope everyone enjoyed that, Seven. It's a really, really great song, and I just found it on YouTube for those of you asking. Um, that being said, the rest of today's lecture is going to be a little bit different. As you might know, something that we do on a daily basis is something called Guru Vandan. Basically, we want to pay our respects to Acharya Mahasabs and Sadhus and Sadhvis who have taken the right path and have done something so much more than us, right? So we want to give our respect to them, say that this is something I want to achieve myself, and also ask them to make sure that they're doing well and that if there's anything that we can do for them. So we're going to complete Guru Vandan in just a second. If you want to call a parent over to do it with your family or do it with the parent, please do that now. This can be something everybody can do together. I'm going to wait 1 minute so everyone can do that if they want to. And otherwise, we're going to demonstrate how to do Guru Vandan, and I'm going to project a picture of a guru that Tejal Auntie will talk more about in just a second. Let's let people resume. I know a lot of people want to go. Oh, I know a lot of people want to go get their parents, but as soon as they're back, then we'll go ahead and get started.
Yes, the picture of the guru that is going to be displayed right now, I want to talk about him. But before I get there, we just heard the Haladu. In the Haladu itself, we heard about the birth of baby Bhagwan. We heard how he is put in this beautiful cradle and how he is kind of swayed to sleep by his parents. And also in that, we heard that they heard about his birth through the astrologers as well as Keshi Gandhar, who had told everybody who is Keshi Gandhar. Keshi Gandhar is actually not a Gandhar, but it's just a normal Muni who was a sadhu of Parshvanath Bhagwan, and he had told everybody that there is going to be a 24th Tirthankar, and that 12 Chakravartis have gone. The Pavan told us that nahi have Chakri Raj, because Chakravartis have all gone. There is no more Chakravartis that are going to be there in this Avsarpini. And so it is now only and only the birth of the 24th Tirthankar which is left. And this is long waited. And that's why the song also kind of tells us that. The same thing that we just heard in the Kalpa Sutra. Yeah, now getting back to the picture, the Guru Maharaj Sahib, he is Yasho Vijayji Maharaj Sahib, and he is my Guru. Yes, he takes shibirs. He is very, very learned. He is very, yes, here, he is Yasho Vijayji Maharaj Sahib, and he takes shibirs every 6 months. He is pretty old now, but still everybody knows him or calls him as Mini Bhagwan. Whatever he says, whatever he does is kind of comes true. Even if we get to sit in his aura, even if he doesn't even talk to us, if we get his aura, just go there and sit while he's working. Just sit there. You will feel his presence. You will feel his vibes. You will see the thought process in you change, and just sitting with him day after day will definitely change you to a good extent. Even in anybody kind of gives him that kind of respect in this Jain sadhu samuday, that nobody is as learned, as peaceful, as level-headed as him. In fact, there has been many things health-wise in his life, and at those moments also there have been lot of arguments and discussions which were not so healthy. But at that time too, if you asked him, when you asked him, even at the time that he has just had a heart operation, a bypass surgery, which was just recent, I think last year or year before that, and if you asked him in those times or in these times or any of his tough times, he only says ghatna hati ghati gai, means it was just an incident, it happened, it went past, why think about it, it never happened to me, in mane nathi ghati પણ આ શરીરને થયું, it just happened to my soul, my body, it didn't happen in actual to me. So I do not have any attachment or detachment with that, And that is the kind of this Guru Maharaj Sahib. And he is very, very involved in dhyan. He teaches dhyan. He gets people to get involved in dhyan. He kind of takes you very slowly. His vachnas and vyakhyans are available on YouTube. If anybody is interested, you should definitely go and hear them out, because they will be life changers for you, I'm sure. Because he talks about a lot of things that many don't. He talks about Buddhism, he talks about Hinduism in a good way, he talks about Meera, he talks about Mother Teresa, and he kind of relates everything with Jainism. He is worth listening to. That's it.
Thank you, Dejanti. So that's a good image of who we're doing Guru Vandan to, right? We're bowing down to this Maharaj Sahib. And with that, we're going to introduce Parshva Vakaria. If you can please switch your camera on. Parshva is one of the co-chairs of YJ, and he's going to be leading us in doing Guru Vandan today. So make sure you pay attention to his camera. He'll show up on the left side of your screen, or wherever your camera is located. And he's going to walk you through exactly how to do Guru Vandan, how to stand. He'll say the sutras, just follow along with him to the best of your ability. My bad. Parshva, if you want to go ahead.
Jai Jinendra, everyone. So today I'll teach you all how to do Guru Vandan. So first you'll want to face the Guru with your hands folded in prayer. The first step is doing 2 Kamasanas, so I'll lead you through those first. Ichami Kamasamno Vandiyu Javani Jai Isihai Matheno Vandami. Ichami Kamasamno Vandiyu Javani Jai Nisihai Matheno Vandami. Next, you'll stand up with your hands folded in prayer and recite the Ichakar Sutra. Ichakar Suha Desi Sakatapa Sharira Niyabad Sukha Sanjam Jatra Nirvo Choji Swami Shata Cheji Bhat Panino Lab Dejoji. Now we'll do one more Kamasana. Ichami Kamasamno Vandiyu Javani Jai Nisiyai Mathena Vandami. Next, we'll do the Abhutyomi Sutra with your hands folded. Icha Karana Sandisa Bhagwan Abhutyomi Abhintara Devasyam Kameo Icham Kamemi Devasyam. Now, you'll kneel with your right hand on the floor and your left hand over your mouth. Jankinchi Apatyam Parpatyam Bhate Pane Vinaya Vyavache Alave Sannave Uchasane Samasane Antar Bhasaye Uvri Bhasaye Jankinchi Majja Vinaya Parihinam Sumamba Bayamba Tubbe Jana Ahamna Janami Tasamichami Dukram. Now we'll stand up and do one more Kamasana. Ichami Kamasano Vandiyu Javani Jai Nisiyai Mathena Vandami.
Thank you, Parshva. Just want to add 1 or 2 tips to what this Guru Vandan that Parshva showed us. In that, when you say the Ichkar Sutra, Ichkar Suharai or Suhadesi, you say either or. If you're doing Vandan before 12 in the afternoon, that is noon, then you say Ichkar Suharai. But if you are doing Vandan after 12, then you say Suha Devsi. So that is one thing that we must keep in mind when we do Guru Vandan. Also, now when we do Guru Vandan to an Acharya Maharaj Sahib, just like Parshva showed us, 2 Kamasamnas, then you say the Ichkar Sutra, and if he is an Acharya or a Padastha, means a Panyas, Acharya, anything, a Upadhyay, then we add 1 more Kamasamana before the Abhutyo, that hand down and the right hand down and the left hand on your mouth. So in between, we do 1 more Kamasamana between the Ichkar Sutra and the Abhutyo Sutra. But if he is a normal Muni or if it is not a Padastha Vyakti, then we do not add that 1 Kamasamana in the middle. So yes, these are the 2 exceptions. you have to actually see who you're doing Vandan to and accordingly pick what you need to do. Yes, Harshita.
Perfect. Again, thank you, Parsha, for leading us through Guru Vandan, and thank you, Tejalanti, for the supporting explanation. I did see a lot of you doing this on camera. Really, really appreciate your participation, and I hope you got something out of this. But it's important for us to remember, especially during Paryushan, when we attend lectures like this, when we attend classes, our gurus are the one giving us this information. Yes, Mahavir Swami is one of our gurus, but we have real life gurus too, ones that are in India as Munis, the sadhus and sadhis. So it's important to remember all of them as well as our teachers, like our Pachala teachers, like the Jalanti right now, right? These are all people who are giving up their knowledge. They're sharing their knowledge with us and making us better Jains in the process. So that's really what the point of today's exercise was. I hope everyone enjoyed the lecture. And before we leave, as always, we'd want to give Bachkan to everyone for anyone who's taking a niyam, as well as end with Sarva Mangal. Dejanti, if you want to take it.
Yes, thank you, Harshita. Yes, so for today's niyam, I'm going to give Pachkan right now. And before that, Bhagwan ni Agna Virudh, kai pan bolai gayu hoy, to Trivede Trivede Michhami Tukram. And yes, now to go ahead with the Pachkan, if you haven't already decided what niyam you're going to do, then you can definitely take the Pachkan and decide on to what you would like to do a little later. Right now, you can say, yes, I am taking this Pachkan and I will add my niyam because I can't decide right now or at a later time in the day. Yes, so let's join hands for the Pachkan. Dharna abhigra pachkai anathana bhoginam sahasragaranam mahatragaranam savasamahimatyagaranam vosire vosirami. And Sarvamangal also. Sarvamangalamanganyam sarvakalyanikaranam pradhanam sarvadharmanam jainam jayati shasanam. Pranam everybody.
That concludes today's lecture. As always, please leave us feedback if you can. And if not, we'll see you all tomorrow. Jai Jain and everyone, Pranam, and I hope all tapasvis stay in Shata.